You're listening to A Slice of Therapy with me, Alun Parry. So in this episode, what I want to help you to do is to regain some control over aspects of life by noticing what I refer to as the law of natural stops. Now, when we're engaged in certain activities that we notice are not helpful to us, and we find it difficult to stop, what we will tend to do is we will tend to attack ourselves and beat ourselves up and blame ourselves for having a lack of willpower. That wonderful word, willpower, which is the greatest excuse to define ourselves as somehow inadequate because we simply don't have the willpower. And yet there's so many things that we do stop in life just naturally. And one of the reasons that distinguishes where we find it difficult to stop and where we stop really without thinking about it is because there are some things that have a natural stop built in. You see, nature is created with natural stops. If you think, for instance, it's very difficult, isn't it, to keep exercising for a long time. Let's say, for instance, I decided that I was going to start sprinting. So I start sprinting and I get that initial dopamine rush, which is very, very pleasurable. The kind that you might get, for instance, from, I don't know, some sort of food. And this dopamine rush kind of comes, but I can't keep it going because there's only so long that I can sprint for. And so even though I'm enjoying the dopamine rush of the sprint, it can only really last a few minutes. I can't sprint a marathon. And I can't just binge sprint either. And so I don't really need willpower because nature builds in natural stops. And in the building in of natural stops, it automatically takes care of us and ensures that we maintain some level of control and some level of moderation. The moderation is built in. Now, I mentioned food before, and the different kinds of food, aren't there? Some kind of foods you'll notice you can really binge on. I mean, if I were to get a 6-pack of crisps and I was sat watching the TV, I could very easily go through them one after the other. And yet I couldn't do that with 6 apples. Now, the interesting thing about apples and crisps is that a typical bag of crisps will have more calories, more energy in it than the average apple. And so that doesn't make sense, does it? That I'm taking in more calories and I can keep on going. I certainly couldn't binge eat 6 apples. Because once again, we found something whereby nature has provided us with a natural stop. It's built in. It's there to care for us. It's there to give us some sort of limit. So I'll eat an apple, I'll feel relatively satisfied. If I follow it up with a second apple, I'll feel probably uncomfortably full. If I try and have a third, my body starts to protest in a way that it doesn't do with the crisps. And so it's useful, isn't it, to start to develop a noticing about which things have a natural stop. I mean, even sex has a natural stop. And so the dopamine rush that we get from that also has a point where nature just says, enough. And so I wonder what happens if we have a look at those things that maybe on reflection we think to ourselves, I wish I wasn't doing that. I'm doing that a lot, but I'm noticing that it's probably not that good for me. So there are certain kinds of junk food which can be really difficult to stop eating all the time. But the problem isn't really that we lack willpower. The problem is that these are things which have been designed without a natural stop. They've been actually designed in order to keep us eating these things over and over and over again. They don't have the things in them which give us a natural sense of satiation, of satisfaction, that natural point where it's been built in to be designed to hit that limit of enough is just not built in to junk food. And of course, the same is true of our phones. Now, like most people, I'm having a relationship with my phone that probably isn't serving me. I pick it up a lot. If I put it down, it doesn't feel great to put it down sometimes. I have a moment of boredom, and so I pick the phone up again. I wonder how many people even allow themselves to go to the toilet, that once greatly private thing, without taking their mobile phone with them. And so this all-pervasive instrument is interrupting our concentration. And I think most of us, when I have conversations, will accept that actually they would prefer to have a slightly different relationship with their mobile phone, with their social media, and all of that kind of thing. And once again, we notice, as we think about it in these terms, about the law of natural stops, that the mobile phone doesn't have a natural stop. It releases the dopamine, but then it just keeps asking for more and more in a way that I couldn't do in terms of ordinary food. I couldn't take vegetables and fruit and whole grains and just keep eating and eating and eating and eating. There would become a point where my body would just say stop. And I can't exercise forever. And even a day, the expenditure of energy itself comes to a natural stop, where we take ourselves off to bed and go to sleep. And so I suppose I'm inviting you, as I'm inviting myself really, when I think about this, what are those things in life that we feel are not serving us particularly well? And is there a natural stop? Those things that feel a little bit out of control, do they have a natural stop? And for me, as I ponder this question, I start thinking about, do I really want to buy those crisps? Do I really want to buy that chocolate? Do I really want to go on my phone as much? And start thinking of ways to separate myself from those things which don't have a natural stop and are actually designed to entrap me and to keep me in that place for as long as possible. And instead move my attention and my focus and my behaviour towards those things that have the natural stop as part of it. And I just wonder, as we start to see life and the way we spend our time, just through that lens of the law of the natural stop, and whether it's present in the activity or whether it isn't, what difference that makes to our lives. And not just to our lives in relation to the things that we move ourselves away from, so that we move from a place where we don't have a natural stop to a place where we do. Not just there, but what knock-on effects might that have too? And how does it also change our sense of self when we're no longer in the situation of beating ourselves up for supposedly lacking willpower, when what's really going on is that we are in a terrain which is very new to humanity. We're in a terrain of products that are designed with the opposite of a natural stop, that the natural stop has been taken out of it, and instead they're designed so that you keep going back for more and more and more and more. And so what would happen for us then if we go back to that more natural state of interacting with things and engaging in activities that already have that natural stop built in? If you found this episode useful, please do share it so other people can get the benefits as well. If you'd like to work with me directly, I'm Alun Parry, and you can find more about me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. And of course, you don't have to be local to me because I work online, so you can be based absolutely anywhere. And of course, please subscribe to the podcast as well, because it's absolutely free and it means that you'll never miss an episode again. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you again on the next one.